Well, folks, guess what? We're having a KingCast moment here at the house, and my cohort in crime, which is what journalism is nowadays, right? At least honest journalism. We just figured out.
The unpaid intern.
Yeah. There's a major tell in KingCast versus LCB, and the lawyer who stood in for Jeremy Gelms, he gave it away. And I'm going to file a further Surreply tonight. And here's the deal. Gus and I just figured it out, okay? Gus escapes the room. So, we're both getting over sickness, and Gus doesn't feel too good, so they're out. But anyway, but here's what we came up with. And you want to, I know you're going to dig this. The lawyer said, and I forget his name, but he said twice, and I referenced this on the blog, I call it a blog, whatever. If you look back through my posts, he twice referenced the fact that I have like 200 some people on my circulation list when I'm writing in to speak. Okay, now let's break that down for a second. They said, oh, King spoke both times he's contending, therefore there's no harm, no foul. But I wrote, in the first reply, I wrote to the judge and I explained, it's Chris Lanise in Thurston Superior. I explained to him that, yes, I did speak on both of those occasions. However, I had to call in both times and write in at least one of them before they called me. Now, the first time, in the subject line, I wrote, I did that for you, right? Left to right? Anyway, right. Anyway, so in the subject line, I wrote public participation, February 15th, whatever year it was. And the fucking meeting was the 14th. All right. They know my black ass is going to speak on, you know what I'm saying? So that becomes an issue for the jury to decide. The judge can't look up and say, oh, no, King, they clearly had a reason not to call you. All right. You see what I'm saying? So, and then plus the previous lawyer, as I pointed out, talked about the fact that I've spoken 50 out of 70 times, like in the last, 2 years or something. So you know what my black ass was there for. So that's the first time. But the second time, I also spoke, but that's because I wrote in and called again. And I put the email to them, in the filing. And you can see, I think I wrote something like, what the fuck? I signed up. You know what I mean? I fucking signed up. So I know the judge is looking at it. At least he's kind of a down-to-earth guy. And I know he's looking at it. He's kind of like, oh, yeah, nigga signed up. Right? So, and then why should I have to call then? And does that chill speech? They keep trying to make it into some grand constitutional question. Well, that's one layer of the case. But the bottom line is, there's no way he could dismiss all of this because you clearly chilled our speech. You interrupt us. So anyway, so let's get back to, let me come back to the points now. There's so many points to make, okay? I'm like W. Or was it Walker? Which one was it? Was that 1,000 Points of Light? Remember Dana Carvey used to do that shit? 1,000 Points of Light. All right, a couple of things. I'm laughing my ass off at them. One of them is the number of people that I write, okay? Now, that's what journalism is in the modern era. I don't ride down the street with my, skateboard and throw the newspaper on the porch anymore, My cousin, Mike Wilbon, the journalist, that's what he used to do. He's one of the reasons I became a journalist. He and his brother Donnie would ride their bikes down South Chicago and throw the paper on the porch. We don't do that no more. So I have an email list, and I'm a professionally trained journalist. So in the meeting, in the hearing, the lawyer gets up, and I should cut the music, by the way, so it's clear. So the lawyer gets up. I do it for emphasis, too. I waited for a while. The lawyer, he says he's off to 250-some people and this and that. And I'm like, yes, I do. So here's the hook, line and sinker. It took 4 minutes to get here. He's decrying my profession in telling the judge that I had the nerve to send it to 250 people on my distribution list. You see what I'm saying? That's the modern era. That's what journalists do. He can't discount the fact that I have professional training as a journalist or that I've won civil rights trials as a lawyer. You can't do that. So he's got to attack me a different way. But that fails, though, because he's showing right there that he has disdain for my practice. So, loser. The other point, loser. So the next point, though, and this is key also, is that he talks about David Postman and the fact that I called him churlish. And this goes back to the idiotic argument that I was trying to manifest a case for Mike Asai, another black man, talking about the same things I talk about, the lack of stores, the discrimination, the speech policies cutting us down to 3 minutes. Talking about the same things I talk about. And, he remember the first lawyer said he tried to imply it never happened because he said it was not a figment of my imagination, but he said it was what did he call it? Unsupported allegation. So I found the video and I posted where he cut off, Mike Asai. And he did it in a churlish fashion. Now we come to another point because the lawyer the other day had the nerve to get pissed off that I called it churlish. And he says, well, Your Honor, he can't advance that argument on behalf of Mr. Asai. And I'm like, it's called evidence. And then he kind of brushes that off. He mentions the evidence rule for the state when he says, that it falls short of being evidence. How does it fall short of being evidence? It's a direct comparative. It's like two niggas saying the same thing and Postman cutting us both off. And here's the arbitrary and capricious part of it. And I'm talking about arbitrary and capricious one more time, and then close out here. Vollendroff was arbitrary and capricious for signaling me that he was going to have me hauled out of there, which I'm not going to go without force. That's called an arrest over nothing. And that's why Amira Azada's declaration is important, because she said, I didn't do anything. I didn't do nothing. Right? That should be Postman's argument. I didn't do nothing. I didn't really arrest the nigga. I just said, I might have him hauled out. Anyway, and I came to that brother in solidarity as a minority too. He's GLBTQ. I'm a nigga, and I came to him. Let's not go there with this motherfucker. All right. So next, the other point of arbitrary and capricious was the two incidents with Mr. Postman. All right. Well, the fourth one is cutting the whole program period because they both extolled the virtues of public comment a year or 2 months ago, and then they whacked it. So that's another point of arbitrary and capricious conduct that they said I never showed. Then here's two others, and they're both Mr. Postman, who acted churlishly. Go look it up. Rude and offensive. All right, and short. That's kind of what it is. So what he did with me, of course, was to tell me that if you want to ask questions, this isn't a press conference. I mean, did I call it a press conference, guys?
I believe you might have, actually. I think you're doing it right now.
I did, yeah, but I didn't in that meeting, though, did I, nigga?
No.
I did not. All right, so that's a fuck you, too. So anyway, next thing you know, Postman says, this is not a press conference. I said, I didn't call one. I'm asking you a question. So that's what the problem is. Then he comes back and he says, if you want to ask questions, ask questions. That's just what I had done. And he still cut me off. He says, no, you're done. You're through. That's churlish. Okay. Then he did it with Mike Asai when Mike was trying to make his point. Remember, the policy at the board is that they're not going to talk. They're not going to interrupt. They're not going to answer questions. But when a nigga is talking and they don't want to hear it, they interrupt the nigga. That's what they do. And that's what they did to Mike Asai. And then he comes back and turns it on its head, arbitrarily and capriciously, and tells Mike, if you want to spend the rest of your time arguing with me, you can, because they had to set his minutes back because Postman had interrupted him in violation of their stated protocol, which makes it what? Arbitrary and capricious. So that's it. I'm going to put some of this KNKX back on. They got the tunes rocking. I'm going to take a hot tub and just chill out and relax and, be with my people. Recover. I had a long trip. It's a long story. But it was good, though. I ended up doing some work and stuff out there on the peninsula, too, for my work stuff, which I never would have done had I not stayed over. So it's cool. Pepper, say hi to the people. Woof. Are you hungry? Oh, that's good. Let's go. I got your bowl right here, nigga. Let's go. Nice.